Hi, I'm Alistair Wheat and I work at Analytica. I want to talk today a bit about what's happened in the last few days with all the discussion about Keith Weed, the CMO of Unilever, making the statement at the Cannes Festival that Unilever is no longer going to work with influencers who have bought fake followers. Now, this is a very welcome move. We're very glad that he's made that statement, and we really hope that other brands will follow suit and make similar statements. And part of the statement was that Unilever wants to make people more aware of the sort of dishonest practices that sometimes happen in influencer marketing. And as part of that, I want to talk today about a few of the things that are happening, who's responsible, what can be done about it. And you can check it out on our blog, which is over here, and read a bit more about it, as well as follow-up articles that we'll be writing to address this topic. So first of all, it's important to state that this problem is an ecosystem problem. It's not just about the influencers. And there are four key stakeholder groups involved in this particular mix. So we have the influencers, we also have the brands paying for the influencer work, or sometimes agencies working on their behalf. There's the social networks, so particularly Instagram is where most of the money is going at the moment, but also YouTube, Twitter, LinkedIn, Facebook, etc. There are several platforms that have an important role here. And there's also then the influencer marketing platforms themselves that facilitate this exchange between brands and influencers. We at Analytica are an influencer analysis platform, but we focus on organic engagement rather than paid for advertising. So in this mix, there is, I think, blame to be put in all four of these stakeholder groups, and all four of these stakeholder groups need to do something to tackle the problem. But I'm just going to talk a bit about why we have the problem and why it's maybe a little bit more complex than just the issue of buying fake followers. So I've seen a few instances where sometimes marketers will come up with this glib response when they hear about this problem, saying, oh, you just need to focus on engagement instead of reach, as if somehow engagement is some kind of silver bullet to solve all of these measurement problems. This whole problem is a problem of easy to measure metrics really being easy to fake metrics. So what's happening is brands are looking at influencers in many ways just a new form of advertising, and they are looking at some of the returns that they're getting and thinking, wow, this is pretty cost effective for us. We can get a better amount of impressions or a better reach than paying for traditional ads, even ads on social networks. And so what they're doing is they're looking at influencers, paying the money and seeing these nice stats come out of it, but then influencers are also looking at that and thinking, hey, well, we can fake some of that and get paid more than maybe we really should be. And then the influencer marketing platforms and the social networks are perhaps complicit in that because they're maybe getting some benefit out of that whole exchange as well. But all four need to tackle the problem. So with this whole problem of fake reach, the fake engagement thing is just as big a problem, perhaps more now that more people are focusing on engagement. It's just as easy to buy fake engagement as it is to buy fake reach. With all the money going into this whole ecosystem, there's more money to fund technology to do the faking smarter. So what's happening now is you can go out and very easily just go and Google it, buy fake followers or fake engagement on Instagram in particular, and you can buy fake engagement that will come in staggered so that it's harder to spot. It'll come in from in different videos or different posts, so you don't get the sort of the same level of engagement on each post. You can also customize your fake audience. So there's tools out there that will help brands pick an influencer who's got an audience that's maybe mostly female, mostly certain age range in a certain country, etc. But you can also buy your fake audience to match a certain demographic profile that fits with the sort of brands you want to get paid to do work for. So that's a problem. And the other issue now is that we're seeing a bit of a trend towards micro-influencers in the industry, which I think is also fueling part of this problem. So maybe brands in the past would have worked with 10 influencers who got 500,000 followers each, and they maybe would have had the time to then check out the 10 influencers, really look and see if they're really influential and look at what they're doing, get to know them a bit. But we're seeing inflationary pressure on this now, and that some of these influencers are charging more and more money, and brands are seeing a reduction in the returns they're getting on those influencers. So they're looking to switch to find new up-and-coming influencers, and they're trying to find maybe 100 influencers perhaps who've got 50,000 followers each, and collectively they'll actually get more engagement and so maybe get a better return in terms of who's actually being reached rather than just focusing on bigger tier 1 influencers. The problem here is that when you're looking with 100 influencers rather than 10, you have to rely more on automation. You can't validate manually each influencer. So this is where the influencer marketing platforms are coming in, and that they're automating a lot of this exchange. So brands can go in, put a few keywords and say, I want to find yoga influencers who've got an audience that's mostly female, 18 to 30 in France. And then the influence marketing platform will say, hey, here you go, here are a bunch of influencers, stick in your campaign in here. We'll then let the influencers know that you want to work with them, and there may be some kind of exchange where you can validate what they're posting and then pay them. Even you can pay them in cryptocurrency, and you can then see some stats on a dashboard as to how well your campaign's done. But you're not necessarily going to go and scrutinize each individual influencer. You just want to look at the overall results. And if the overall results look good, then you'll do it again. And maybe a lot of that's actually faked. So this is again part of the problem, is that brands are having to find different ways to get the same sort of returns that they might have got in the early days of influencer marketing, just working with the tier 1 influencers. And this is making them more exposed to influencers who are faking it. The other big challenge with many of these platforms is that they're not going out there looking for influencers to validate them and find people who are influential. They're basically just creating a platform and saying, influencers, come to us. If you're influential, come and tell us, and you can then start getting some money from brands. So influencers are going to these platforms, and often there's some very simple criteria to get in. Maybe you need 10,000 followers. So you just want to go and buy 10,000 followers. You can do it really cheaply, and then you're in the game. Then you're in the mix. And once you start getting some engagement from brands, you look more legitimate to other brands who want to work with you. The other general psychological issue here is that people just online, if they see someone with lots of followers, they may think, wow, this person's important, I'm going to follow them. So having a bunch of fake followers will lead to getting more real followers and maybe more real work from real brands. So sometimes influencers are faking it to make it. They may have bought followers at the start, but maybe now everything they're doing is genuine. So where does that come into the mix? I'd like to maybe see an amnesty for influencers who've done that. Some of them may even be a little bit embarrassed about the fact that they have done it. But if someone like Unilever is saying we're not going to work with someone who's bought fake followers, does that mean that they're not going to work with someone who's ever bought fake followers, or only people who are still doing it? I'm hoping more influencers will come clean where they've maybe used some of those dodgy practices in the past, to help also platforms like us understand what are the tricks of the trade that we can then better spot these sort of dishonest practices. And that's another thing. What exactly is a dishonest practice? So Unilever said they want to stamp out dishonest practices, and we can all agree that buying fake followers and engagements is dishonest. But what about these platforms that then will automate following, and so they'll automate the following of real people to then try and get them to follow back? This is the sort of follow back mechanism. So I'd say that's also dishonest, because it's not really following people because you care about them. You're just following them to get them to follow you back. There's also the whole challenge of Instagram pods, where influencers will work collectively to try and boost their own engagement. There's nothing wrong with influencers working to help each other out, but I think when it's done in a kind of more systematic way like that, and just done out of obligation, typically in these pods you'll have to like or share 10 of the posts from other influencers before you can share your own one in order to get liked, etc. So I think that's also gaming the system, but we need to be more clear about what we consider dishonest or not. So those are some of the key issues that I think that there are now in this whole ecosystem, and it's, again, I think it's a problem of all 4 stakeholder groups. All 4 need to do more about it. And in my next blog post, I'm going to talk more about some of the things that brands can do in terms of the metrics that they look for, and also things that some of the influencer platforms and social networks also need to do in order to make this a much more transparent and an honest practice. That's it from me for today. Thank you for listening. Bye bye.